Welcome to the Believe and Achieve podcast with Lyndon Longhorn and Jay Manners. You will learn many hints and tips throughout this program. It will be a process which will be ongoing and will inspire you throughout your career. Let's go. So welcome back to the Believe and Achieve podcast with Lyndon Longhorn and Jay Manners. And today we have got a very special guest who is basically been to ISL, and she's a multi-international medalist, and she's also soon to be a double Olympian, going to her second Olympic Games. So welcome to the podcast, Molly Renshaw.
Thank you for having me.
It's all right. Anytime. It's a pleasure. So obviously today we're just going to have like a general chit chat about like your swimming career, like growing up and like the challenges you've faced as well. And then at the end, we'll just like ask you what your motto is and things like that, just so you can like give a message to like the younger kids or anyone who's listening today. Is that all right?
Yeah, of course.
Perfect. So just to start off with, Molly, so over the last year, how do you feel lockdown has treated you?
I think it's been a tough one. Like, I feel like a lot of people have kind of experienced a lot of kind of different waves of emotion through it. And I think at the start, kind of, we were obviously just preparing for our Olympic trials. So we were kind of full steam ahead, even though we knew kind of what was going on in the world. And there was doubts of whether the trials would go ahead, but the Olympics might still go ahead. So like, it was all a bit like, we didn't really know what was going on. So when the trials first got cancelled, I think that we got told that they would pre-select a team and kind of the Olympics would still be going ahead, which is quite naive now looking back with what's happened. But just at that time, it was a bit crazy that they were going to just pre-select a team off like performances you'd done last summer and stuff. So I think there was quite a bit of panic around that, like among our squad and things like that, because obviously in Olympic year, a lot of people like just come out of nowhere and drop a load of time. So it's kind of taking that chance away from a lot of people. So I think obviously the stress of all that wasn't great. And then I think once we knew everything had been cancelled, like the Olympics had been postponed, I kind of really started to enjoy lockdown. I think I moved back home with my parents, who I haven't lived with since I was 16. So I actually really enjoyed it. Like, we were doing just like workouts in the garages and like Zoom calls every day, doing like yoga and circuits and things like that. So it kind of stripped everything completely back to the basics. But I just really enjoyed being back home, and like I was around the dog and the horse and things like that. And I was almost having a summer that I used to have when I was like a teenager, where I'd spend all day down the horse and we'd go out riding and things like that. So I think for me, like, it was a really good mental refresh as well as physical. Like, I've been on senior teams now for like 10 years and I've never been kind of forced out of the sport in that way. So I think that being kind of taken out of my control was almost like a blessing. I think it kind of enabled me to take a step back, because I knew everyone else in the world was also doing that, and kind of just enjoy what we were doing. So that when I got back in the pool, I was more motivated than ever to kind of be like, you know what, I have one last shot at this. So like, just give it all you can. So I think, yeah, like I said, like waves of emotion throughout, but I think it definitely did me good, like mentally and physically. Like, getting back in, I was just more ready than ever to kind of get back into training and just give it one last go. So yeah, just, I'm sure you guys went through loads of emotions too. There's a lot of boredom, a lot of baking, a lot of board games and things like that. So
yeah. We'd done a lot of quizzes as a club, to be fair, and it was like every Friday night one of us was selected to do a quiz. That was really fun. And like you mentioned, it's like a mental refresh, isn't it? So overall, from that lockdown period, what would you say is your biggest learning experience from it?
I think I guess in swimming, like, it's quite an old school sport in the fact that we train 10 times a week, we're in the gym 4 times a week, and we get minimal breaks, and like, it's a very intense sport compared to like, say, athletics or something. And I kind of hope that going through this phase would almost change the sport a little bit and make people realize that, oh, they had 3 months out of the water last year, and like, we were the lucky ones to only have 3 months out. But everyone in our group is now swimming faster than ever. So I kind of hope that like the sport will evolve a little bit from this, and almost not be so regimented all the time, where you have to be like on it all the time throughout the whole year and then only have like a 2-week break. Like, I kind of hope this maybe opens new avenues for people's like different training approaches and things like that, because I think it's definitely made me more relaxed. Like I used to get really worked up if I missed a session due to like a little niggle or an illness or things like that. I'd see that as the end of the world, and I'd be like, well, that's my preparation ruined. Whereas now I've had 3 months out last year and I'm swimming faster than I ever have. And part of me is like, sometimes it's just needed, and I think sometimes you just need weekends away or a week off when it's like getting too much. And so I kind of hope that in that sense the sport will change going forward.
Have you got a break coming up, did you say, this year?
I'm not entirely sure what's happening with our breaks this year, because so we go out to Tokyo in 4 weeks on Saturday.
That's
we'll
flown over.
I know. Yeah. It's scary, isn't it? Like someone told me the other day, they were like, yeah, it's 4 weeks on Saturday. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not ready.
So are you having to like adapt like time and zone?
We're trying to do more things around like, obviously we have morning finals, which I don't think at the Paras they do. I think their finals in the evening, right? So I'm very much not a morning person. Like I'm like comatose until like midday, and then I'll start waking up. So we're doing a lot more work around kind of just trying to be more awake in the morning, kind of getting up maybe 4 or 5 hours before your race and just ticking through some activation, whether that's like getting on the bike and things like that, just to try and make sure that by 10 o'clock when you do race it, like your brain almost feels like it's like midday or late into the afternoon. So in that sense, we're doing a few more bits like focusing training around that. But we've got a couple of weeks out there before we race to kind of acclimatise and get used to the time zones and stuff. So I think we should be okay by the time we race.
I'm sure you'll be fine. The mornings are the worst thing, to be honest with you.
I know. I'm so bad in the morning. Like I've been trying so hard to kind of like make myself like get up out of bed quicker in the morning, like even just day to day, just practicing things like that, because I love my sleep, and I'm much more like a night owl than a morning person.
What time do you train in the morning? Is it like really early, or is it?
No, so we're quite lucky. We train usually like 8 till 10ish roughly. It changes like day to day a little bit, but usually around 8 till 10. So it's not too bad. But yeah, I definitely need to get used to getting up a little bit earlier.
Yeah, it's not as bad as I was then, getting up at like 4 o'clock to go and train.
Is that what you train?
This morning.
Train at half 5, yeah.
Oh, I haven't done that since I left Renshaw, and I don't think I could do it anymore.
Yeah, I think it makes it better when you, like, don't get me wrong, I love early mornings, but when you're doing it a bit later in the morning, it's quite nice when you've had that extra lie in and you know you've got that little bit of rest. But
yeah, you two would be fine at morning finals then. You'd smash it.
Oh,
debatable.
Glasgow might pretty damaged me, to be honest, but I think that's because I'm not used to like doing heats at night and then a final and then doing different events on the evening as well.
It's hard to get your head around, isn't it?
Yeah, because I know I woke up one morning and I was like, right, what have I got today? And I was like, oh no, I've got a final. And it was just like completely throwing me off. But
yeah, I kind of had to have like, I'd do my final in the morning, then I'd have a nap in the middle of the day, and I'd try and almost think of my nap as like a nighttime sleep, so that when I woke up it was almost the next day. But then my brain was just mashed, because I was like, right, now I've got 200, but I did 100 this morning. It's just like trying to move through it. So yeah, it's very confusing.
Yeah. So obviously your swimming career, what age and how did you get involved with swimming?
So I just kind of learned to swim as a child. I think my mum and dad just wanted me to kind of be safe on holidays and things like that, so that they weren't worried about me. So it's just like an amazing life skill to have. So I just went through kind of private swimming lessons, and they kind of said like, she stuck to it really well, like maybe you should think about joining the club, like if she's enjoying it. So from there I joined my local club, which was Ripley Rascals at the time, and I think I joined them maybe when I was like 5 or 6, maybe even earlier. I was very young. And yeah, so then I just kind of trained with them a couple of times a week. It was more just for fun than anything. And then from there I got scouted to train at Devonshire, which is like the Derbyshire hub group. And I think I was in year 6 at school. So how old are you there? Maybe like 10 or 11?
Yeah.
About that, yeah.
Yeah, so I got scouted to start swimming with them. So I started doing a few mornings a week with them. and that's obviously where it kind of started getting a little bit more serious, you know, because you're like kind of almost doing it before school, doing it after school, and like is a bit more of a priority. But I was very much still just doing it. Like I had a really good group of friends. Like I wasn't the fastest swimmer. I'd like occasionally make national finals and things like that, but it was definitely more just like an enjoyment thing then. So yeah, that's kind of the reason I got into it, and then things have just gone from there really, and now I'm kind of stuck in it. So yeah.
Yeah, and
you've got the horse as well though, Molly, so you never know.
Yeah, we might have a sport change maybe for the next Olympics.
That'll be good. So like you mentioned at the start that you've like been a part of like an international team for like a good decade now, and what was that transition like, going from a junior in like a club environment going to Loughborough?
I think for me, in terms of going from junior competitions to senior, like I kind of had a breakthrough in 2011 where I made like my first junior team and senior team in the same year. So
right,
in that sense, I'm quite lucky that I never really had that struggle of making the change from junior to senior. But like you said, like moving to Loughborough, that was probably the biggest change, because I feel like I'd almost outgrown Renshaw. You know, I was like the oldest one there, and my kind of close group of friends had all started quitting because they obviously wanted to like go to sixth form and uni and things like that. So they kind of chose more the education route, and that like, it became a point where I almost had to pick which one I wanted to do. And I knew that if I wanted to keep improving on my swimming, I kind of needed that change there and then. So that's when me and Andy kind of sat down. He's kind of encouraged me to move. He was like, I think this is best for you for your swimming career if you want it to kind of have longevity in the sport and keep going and keep improving. So I started training with Loughborough maybe twice a week to start with. So kind of flipping between Renshaw and Loughborough. And so in that sense, like it was quite a gradual move, because I did that for quite a few months before I kind of made the full transition. But I think just going from being the oldest swimmer there to the youngest swimmer by quite a way at Loughborough, because I moved literally, I think I passed my driving test and I moved to Loughborough like a week later. Like it was as soon as I could drive away, I was off. So it was, I think it was definitely the change that I needed, like just to be surrounded by like-minded people who wanted to kind of achieve the same things. And I was training with like the likes of like Fran Halsall, Roberto Pavoni, Dan Fogg and things like that. And like they're these big names that I've kind of always looked up to. And even on my first senior team was kind of like, wow, like I'd love to train with them one day. So it was definitely like a kick up the backside, I think, that I needed. And it kind of like my training it was so hard, but I think it was the change that I needed. And then I started kind of introducing gym and things like that. And I kind of got results instantly. So every time I was racing, like straight after I'd moved, I'd get in the pool and I'd be doing best times. So like I think having that reassurance that it was working, I think that just kind of enabled me to keep going and kind of have confidence in the program. And I think, yeah, like I said, being around people like that was just, it was what I needed, rather than me being dragged down by almost the younger swimmers who were there to mess around. That was kind of like my professional step over, I guess, into the sport. So it was pretty smooth, to feel like everyone was always so lovely to me. And like I said, with making senior teams, I never really had that struggle from junior to senior. So I've been quite lucky in that respect, that my whole journey has been quite smooth, really. Obviously there's been dips in the road where I haven't, and times I won, but in terms of making teams, I've always kind of been there or thereabouts.
You've got a very busy career then, Molly, from junior to senior.
Yeah, very busy.
What was
Sorry, Karen.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say, what was that first senior meet like your first senior team, obviously with being very young?
Yeah, quite scary. I think so. I went to my juniors in Belgrade, and I swam quite well. I think I got a bronze there in the 200, and then it was me and Siobhan O'Connor who had both made the junior and senior team. So I was quite lucky in the respect that I had someone to kind of go through it with.
Yeah.
But we literally flew home from juniors, stayed overnight in Heathrow, and then flew out to Shanghai the next day for the senior worlds. And I just remember getting to the airport, and like there were so many people on the team that I didn't know. Like there was obviously the big names that I did know, but like before this point, I guess I'd never really taken swimming that seriously, so I wasn't that invested in like who was at the top of the sport in our country. So it, like, I've kind of had to almost put myself out there to get to know people and stuff, but then you also don't want to be that annoying young one who's like always asking questions and things. So I did struggle. Like, I remember ringing my mum crying quite a few times, being like, I don't think I should be here, and things like that. But looking back, I think it was a great learning experience, and it definitely made me kind of mature a lot quicker. And I think it's helped me gaining that experience so young, kind of now that I'm the older one on the teams. I do try and look out for the younger ones, because I know that I was that person one day and I was quite young and naive. And so yeah, it's quite nice to kind of growing through the sport and kind of have that experience behind me from a young age.
100%.
Yeah.
So I know, obviously, Molly, you are a breaststroker, and obviously breaststroke's your main stroke. What made you choose breaststroke over like butterfly or freestyle, and how did it come about you being a breaststroker?
So I actually used to hate breaststroke.
Oh well, great.
Like when I was kind of like learning to swim and having like private lessons and stuff, I'd be like, no, I don't want to do the froggy stroke. I hate it. So I used to be a backstroker, which ironically is like my absolute worst stroke now. It's so slow. So yeah, I started off as like a backstroker, and then I started kind of dabbling in IMs. That's kind of what I went to juniors on, was like IM and breaststroke, like they were kind of an equal focus. But then yeah, I don't really know, my breaststroke just started improving a lot quicker than anything else did, and I was ranking a lot higher in the breaststroke, so then the focus kind of shift over more towards that. And yeah, and now I literally can't do anything else other than breaststroke.
That's a bit similar to me actually, because when I was younger, I started off like hating breaststroke, and then backstroke was my number one, and then I think it's like sort of like a growth spurt change, or like as you get older, and then it just switch, and like backstroke, like I just struggle.
Yeah, really slow. Like I don't understand it. Like I used to be all right at it, but now it's so slower than a breaststroke. Like
so obviously mentioning that you are a breaststroker, you represented the New York Breakers at your first ISL last year. Mm-hmm. What was that experience like for you? Because it seemed to be like a very intense 6 weeks.
It was, I think, kind of going into it with the whole bubble situation, we knew it was going to be intense, and we knew it was probably going to feel like quite a long 6 weeks. But I was quite lucky in the fact that on the Breakers, there's quite a few of my actual like training squad from Loughborough on the team as well, so that made it so much better, kind of going there with people, knowing that you didn't have to make friends from the get-go. Like we could kind of stick together until we branched out and kind of got talking to other people. So that definitely helped, like having some of your best friends around you, because I think otherwise it would have been quite a daunting experience. But yeah, it was really good. Like I really enjoyed it, and I think as a team, the New York Breakers got on really well. Like we made a real effort with each other to kind of like at night times we'd watch films together, or we'd do board games and just things like that, like kind of just trying to bond, because we knew we were kind of stuck with each other for the next 6 weeks. So it's kind of like we need to get on really. So yeah, and I think having that bond just really helped then translate that into racing. Kind of it's the first time, other than like relays and things, that I've kind of swam for like a team, I guess. Because even when I was younger, we never did arena leagues or anything like that, because Ripley weren't good enough, to be honest. Like we didn't have a team good enough to do it. So this is kind of like my first experience of racing for a team, and kind of you're going out there to win points for your team, not just you're doing it for yourself. So I think gaining that kind of bond with everyone really helped in the racing, because you knew that you wanted to do it for your team that was like cheering you on in the stands. So yeah, it's a completely different concept to what I'm used to, but I really enjoyed it. It was quite intense, obviously, being there for 6 weeks, but with the racing being so like, we could have one match on Monday, then we'd have 2 days off, and then we'd have another match and things like that. So weeks like that flew by, but then there'd be some days where we'd have like maybe a 10-day gap between. So like some weeks it'd drag quite a bit, because we'd have to get quite a bit of training in, because obviously we're racing so much, we didn't want to kind of decondition ourselves. So it was about kind of balancing the workload along with the racing, just to try and make sure that we went home in a good state. So yeah, it was quite hard, but I'd definitely do it again. I really enjoyed it. And and hopefully like maybe next year restrictions will start to ease and we can maybe not be locked in a bubble together and we can go outside and things like that. That'd be nice.
Start getting the crowds back as well, and start getting some atmosphere back in, because I think that's what, like, Glasgow, it was like quite tough when you, like, I know the Manchester bubbles and trials, and now Glasgow, it's like all being behind closed doors, and it's different when you've got the crowd behind you. And I don't know, did you feel the difference with ISL with that or not?
I think with ISL, because they do try and put on such a good show, they have the lights and they have the loud music and they have all the kind of graphics and things going on, and obviously your teams are on poolside kind of cheering you on, the people who aren't racing. Like, in that sense, you don't really notice the crowd, you know, because it's so dark, you can't really see in the stands anyway. That wasn't so bad. But like you said, kind of like the Manchester meets and the Glasgow meets, they were really quite tough, just because you're walking out to your race and they don't particularly make an effort to make an atmosphere, and it's kind of you before your race and there's like elevator music playing and you're just like, it's quite hard to get up for it. Whereas when you kind of have that atmosphere and stuff, it just makes it so much easier to like get up there and race and like kind of be in the right mindset. So I think like ISL and things like that wasn't massively a problem, and I think that kind of almost gave us reassurance that if this summer there isn't a crowd, that hopefully that wouldn't be as much of a problem, because we've kind of experienced it beforehand.
I know you've been to Budapest twice, because you did ISL, which was in Budapest, and then you've done Europeans at Budapest as well. Did you find much of a difference between the two bubbles? Because I know obviously ISL was like 6 weeks long, whereas Europeans wasn't like even half as long as that. So did you find much of a difference between those?
It was quite nice because for the ISL we were on Margaret Island, so we were locked on the island, or we couldn't leave unless we were going to the pool. So it was quite nice for Europeans. We were kind of on the other side of the river and looking at the island, so it was kind of like, at least we're not stuck on there. But they weren't too different, to be honest. I think I don't know if it's just the world that we've got used to, like with wearing masks and socially distancing and kind of not sitting next to people on buses and things like that, just like the little things that you probably would never even think about normally. I feel like maybe we've just adjusted to it, so it almost feels normal. I know it's like so far from normal, but yeah, I don't think that they differed too much. Like, all the safety protocols were in place that needed to be, so I think they both ran pretty smoothly, but it was nice to not be there for 6 weeks.
And carrying on from like Europeans, I would just like to congratulate you on becoming European champion in the 200 breaststroke and also a part of the 4x1 medley.
Thank you.
But overall, how was that meet for you?
It went a lot better than I expected. I think going into it was a bit of a tough one. Like, we didn't really know how it was going to go, because we'd had trials, we'd had kind of half a week off just to kind of like reset, and then since then we've just kind of been digging ourselves into a bit of a hole. So training had been really hard, and I wasn't particularly feeling flash in the water. So it was, I had a bit of confidence in the back of my head that after 2016 trials, we went to Europeans and I swam faster there than I actually did at trials. So in my head, I was kind of like, oh, I hope that happens again. But I just couldn't imagine it with kind of like the work that we were doing and like how I was feeling in the water. Like, I just felt pretty dug in. So I kind of went there and was like, this could go really well or this could go really badly. So I think starting off with the 100, I think that kind of gave me a bit of confidence, because my race at trials was good. I kind of got a really small PB, but there was so much that I did wrong in the last like 15 meters that I knew if I put right could like make a big drop. So I think doing the 100 first, and I got quite a big PB in the semi-final, I think that kind of just gave me confidence that I was in a good place and that I knew my back end speed on the 100 was good, which kind of gave me confidence going into 200. So I kind of knew I'd have a decent swim in me. And I think being able to go 2:21s just really filled me with confidence, you know, because I made quite a big drop at trials from a 22 to a 20. So it's nice to kind of get a bit of a mid ground in there and just know that I can kind of produce them times in work, so that hopefully come taper I can get back down into 220s or even better, hopefully.
I'm sure you will. You'll smash it, as always. Like you did in Glasgow.
Oh, Glasgow wasn't as fresh, but it was okay for a first morning try.
Glasgow was a warm-up though.
Yeah, and I feel like it's so hard, isn't it? Like we said with like the atmosphere and stuff, like unless you're in like a big stadium with a bit of atmosphere, you have other countries to kind of race, like kind of just brings out the best in you, doesn't it? Whereas when all that's kind of suppressed, it just becomes so hard to almost get the best out of yourself at the time you need it.
Yeah, and it was amazing to watch Europeans, because me and Linda were watching it when they were live, and you could sort of hear like the music blasting as well. Did you hear the music when you were swimming?
Not when I was swimming, no. I think I always try and like just focus on what I'm doing. Yeah. But even like just walking behind the blocks, you know, like when they've got a bit of music blasting, they announce your name, and like there's a few teams in the stands like cheering for you, like just makes like a big difference. So just really gets you like a lot more pumped up for your race.
And Budapest seemed to like put a bit of a show on every time there's swimming on as well, because like everything looked amazing, didn't it, Lyndon? Like
like from ISL like to Europeans, we were both like, should we just get a flight and go out there and just watch?
Yeah, they are really good. Like we had Worlds in 2017 there as well, and like this obviously when things were normal, and it was like a complete sellout every night. Like the Hungarian crowd was amazing. Like they really got into it, and like you said, they just put on a really good show. And it's probably one of my favorite pools to race in because of that. Because every time I go, they just put on a really good competition. Yeah. Like there's always a lot of fast women there, so yeah, they do a really good job.
Yeah. So I know, obviously, like you've qualified for Tokyo and you're heading out there in the next few weeks to go for Holden Camp. How are you feeling now compared to how you felt in 2016, like going to Rio?
I'd like to think I'm almost a completely different athlete. Like I think me making the team in 2016 was not enough, but that's kind of what I went to trials to do. Whereas I feel like going into this year, I'm in a much better position. Like I'm ranked top 2 in the world, so I just think having that confidence that I had that break last year, I kind of came in and I've tried to give it absolutely everything since then. So part of me is like, I'm gaining confidence through the fact that I know I've kind of given it everything that I can, and no matter what happens this summer, I know that I've kind of done everything that I can and I don't really regret anything. Whereas I think going into Rio, looking back, there's definitely things that I could have done better or kind of could have worked harder on. So yeah, I'm excited. I think everything's kind of coming together at the right time, and I obviously can't control what other people do, but I think me personally, I'm in a good space, kind of like headspace and physically. So yeah, I'm just excited to just see what happens. You know, at the end of the day, it's just swimming. So if I don't come home with the result I want, it's not the end of the day. But if I do, then yeah, I'll obviously be over the moon.
That's amazing. And like, we wish you the very best of luck in the world, and we know that you'll smash it.
Yeah, thank you. I'll try.
Are you going to go for Paris as well, or?
I don't know. I think it's obviously more tempting now that it's only 3 years away rather than 4. But I mean, I'm definitely not getting any younger. But I think I'm taking each year as it comes. Like I think with the ISL being here now, it's obviously more enticing to carry on. So I'm definitely going to swim for at least another year, but I think as long as I'm enjoying it, I'll just carry on. That's kind of like a big thing for me. Like if I'm enjoying it, then why wouldn't I? Like I wouldn't get to nap in a normal job, so I may as well just carry on. So I'm just taking it year by year and see what happens. And you might see me there, you might not see me there.
Well, I hope you do, because I'm going for Paris as well. So
you'll smash it though. You've got years left.
Thanks. I'm not that much older than you, to be honest, though. So,
and obviously, like with the lead up into Tokyo, we know that you're like really, really busy now, and we just want to thank you for having this opportunity to come on with us, and we really do appreciate it. Just one final question for me is: have you got a message to anyone that is listening now, or is there a motto that you stick by throughout your life, whether that's involved with swimming or just in general?
I think kind of what I've just touched upon, like being happy within the sport. Like my motto throughout my whole career has been, it's really cheesy, but a happy swimmer is a fast swimmer. Because for me personally, like if I'm happy outside the pool, I'm happy inside the pool. So I feel like everything kind of has to marry up for me to kind of have the best version of myself. So I think just don't take things too seriously. Like I said, swimming is just swimming at the end of the day, and just do it because you enjoy it and not because it's almost seen as a job or things like that. So yeah, I think just enjoy the journey as long as you can, because it's better than getting a real job.
That's so key as well. Like, I think like everyone does love like a happy swimmer is a fast swimmer, and that's a really good motto.
Yeah. So I think I just need to leave my job now. Then that's it. Just become a full-time athlete again.
Yeah, you'll be fine.
Yeah, because working full-time and training full-time, it's pretty difficult, to be honest with you. So
yeah, I can imagine. I don't think I could juggle that right now.
But before you go, do you mind if we play a little game?
Oh God. Okay.
So this game is we've went on individual best times, and we've selected 2 events of yours, which is the 100 breaststroke and the 200 breaststroke. And pretty much you have to guess how many times you've swam them 2 events throughout your whole career.
Oh God.
So this includes heats, semi-finals, and finals.
Yeah.
So we'll give you 3 guesses, and we'll say higher or lower every time.
Is this both events added together or just one?
No, we'll do the 100 breaststroke first, and then Lyndon will go through your 200.
200, yeah.
Okay. Are we short course or long course?
Oh, long course, sorry.
Okay.
Oh, that's a good question, actually.
I need clarification on this.
No, it's long course.
It's definitely long course, yeah.
Okay, so the 100 first.
100 first, yeah.
I'm going to go 85.
Oh, way higher.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's sad, isn't it? 137.
Higher.
Really? Oh my God. 174.
Oh, you were very, very close. It's 170.
Oh, that's a lot. 100 breaststroke.
Yeah.
Wow.
How many
I feel like
minutes
the
is that?
200 is going to be even more.
170 hundreds.
Yeah.
Oh God. No.
1,000.
It's 17,000, isn't it? Or is it
17,000. Oh God.
Oh,
This is going to be embarrassing.
Leave that.
No, it's 17,000. Yeah, because I was just thinking of 100 hundreds. That's 10k, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, 17,000.
Wow. That's mad.
So
that's just for the 100.
I'm tired just thinking about it.
Nap time after this, Mol.
I know.
200 breaststroke.
I feel like logically, surely that's got to be more, because at most meets, I'd progress better through the 200 as in like semi-finals and finals than I would the 100. So I'm going to go 203.
Less.
Oh, maybe I've got this very wrong. 187.
Less.
Oh, okay. 164.
Oh, it's 170.
Is it?
Yeah.
Same? Wow, that's quite impressive.
That is really impressive. When I counted it, it was just like I'd obviously done the 100 and then done the 200, and I was like, "Oh, is this right?" And then I counted them again, and it was right again that you'd done them exactly the same times. Yeah. But when I was discussing it with Lyndon, he obviously pointed out like at most competitions you must do 100 and 200.
Yeah.
And
together.
I guess when I was younger, I remember doing like Derbyshire sprints and stuff, and the max event was 100 meters, so I would never have done 200 there. So maybe it's like balanced out like throughout my career. Did you count them all like individually?
Yeah.
Oh God, sorry.
Oh no, it's quite all right. It's a fun little game. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I enjoyed that. That's really surprised me.
Well, no, that's great. Thank you very much for that, Molly.
Cool. Thank you for having me. It's good fun.
Just to do what like Lyndon said, like it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, and like really, really enjoyed this chat. And again, from us too, we really wish you the best of luck for Tokyo. I'm sure you'll smash it, definitely.
Thank you. I'll try my hardest.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. We hope that you enjoyed, and we are so excited to bring brand new content to this. So make sure you check out our socials to stay up to date of when we'll be posting next. Until the next one, take care, and remember, believe and achieve.